Story 1. Undiagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and autism until I was in my 30s could have saved me a lot of confusion, suicide attempts, and completely ruined relationships if I had known. Not to mention the massive delays to my academic career. I thought I was just a failure. It turns out, with adjustments and coping mechanisms, I can be relatively functional and productive most of the time. Story 2. My wife died from colon cancer at age 45. 2 weeks later, my son was diagnosed with kidney cancer. I want to die, but I am not allowed to yet. Story 3. Dropped my guard twice. Got played twice. Now I do not even entertain the idea of being with someone. I just tell them I am taken. I cannot go through that again. Story 4. I experienced multiple significant traumas in childhood. I find it difficult to maintain friendships for long. People often end up disliking me after some time. I frequently ruin my relationships. Then, I get stuck dwelling on the mistakes I made and struggle to move on. I have undergone therapy, and it has improved my situation. However, I have still lost many good people in my life. Story 5. Severe menstrual periods. Edit. For clarification, I mean really painful menstrual cycles that make me feel like not wanting to exist anymore. Story 6. Myself. Fell for his money, paid the price with bruises and a broken jaw. I was young and inexperienced, but that experience made me a new woman. I worked hard so I would never have to depend on a man. Story 7. My parents expected me to figure everything out for myself. I was only given guidance when they did not want me to do something. Story 8. In every way possible. So much so that I became agnostic after being raised Christian. I do not believe in any religion anymore. Story 9. Sleep deprivation harassment, dream manipulation harassment, mind reading, multiple psychiatric hospitalizations, poor and dishonest parents and their impersonators, multiple job losses, and so on. Story 10. Trigger warning. Anxiety by age 5, suicidal ideation and depression by age 9, self-harming by age 12, mental hospital stay for suicidal ideation at age 13 followed by 60 days of outpatient treatment. I almost failed 8th grade. I am now out of patience to explain the rest, but it has been a challenging journey. I cannot function without Vyvanse, Strattera, Atarax, Lexapro, and concerning amounts of melatonin. Story 11. In less than a month, my friend died by suicide, my father started getting sick from cancer, another friend decided to end our relationship and has been speaking negatively about me without any response from my side, so I have lost much of my support system. I fully broke up and cut contact with my boyfriend of 4 years. I was recently informed that my great-aunt, who was one of the primary people who raised me in a very small family, is dying. I also moved apartments, which was very difficult and cost much more than it should have because I was not assertive enough when I said I should be the one to hire movers. I am coming off a really bad final semester of undergraduate studies, and my remaining close friends, aside from my roommate, live 900 miles away. Regarding the conflict, I am not a horrible person. I just had a miscommunication with the friend, and he is angry and unwilling to hear me out. However, I have not had the energy or self-esteem to defend myself or explain the miscommunication. Story 12. Sick family members during my early teenage years caused a lot of stress. The thing that I love is causing me a ton of physical and mental pain, and I love it. However, it makes me want to quit, but I cannot because people probably will not let me anymore. Story 13. Horrible, emotionally immature parents, bipolar spouse who disappeared forever, recent soulmate who left me because of the aforementioned spouse. Now I am alone and severely depressed. Story 14. I am an adopted Inuk. I have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, bipolar disorder type 2, and alcohol addiction, along with intergenerational trauma and trauma from many severe domestic violence situations. Story 15. I was homeschooled from 1st grade to 5th grade with no friends. Then I was dropped into a public school where I was heavily bullied from 6th to 8th grade. During sophomore year, COVID-19 hit, and I did not do any schoolwork. In junior year, I had to be placed in continuation school, where I completed packets to earn credits. I worked very hard to return to high school for senior year, only to find it was not worth it because people rarely talk and mostly focus on their phones. I graduated, had a job for a month, then quit. Since then, I have been unable to get a job this year. I have been getting many interviews recently, but I have not received any callbacks and feel extremely lonely at home. Story 16. My father is a selfish, entitled person who did not want to work for someone else. He retired early and was home most of the time, picking fights with my poor mother. He made everyone look older than their age. I have not spoken to him since 2022, yet we still live in the same house. I am trying to get a job to move my family out and leave him alone to deal with himself. Story 17. Cancer was not cured until I was 12 years old. Due to the trauma from the cancer, I now feel anxious, paranoid, and generally pointless. Story 18. Childhood trauma was compounded by abandonment from both sets of parents and homelessness. However, I am married to an amazing woman and am now flourishing. Story 19. I was sleeping in life out of nowhere, took shots from the back. It still hurts. I didn't even use lubricant. Story 20. I thought Iraq would be an adventure. Well, it was. And for my mistakes, I still pay for it to this day. Story 21. Grew up in group homes. The first person I built a good relationship with had a mental breakdown and stole everything from me when I was going to buy a house and set up for the future. But I am still kicking and always keep going. Story 22. I built a defense mechanism by acting like the person I was told I was to avoid having my genuine interests and feelings hurt by this individual. I noticed that by being unpleasant, it gives them a reason to be awful to me without actually hurting my feelings. That being said, I know this is wrong. It is deeply ingrained and does not happen when I am around unfamiliar people. I feel for the family members who think I am worth something because I indirectly give them a hard time this way. Story 23. My first manic episode occurred during my first semester of university. 2 years later, I was expelled due to poor grades. I was recently diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and expect to be diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder soon. My childhood was negatively affected by a delusional grandmother who made me believe my father was a murderer. It was her way of coping with grief. Only this year have I lived in one place for longer than a year. Since I was 10, I moved approximately every year, having to leave friends without notice and face repeated bullying. I feel empty inside, and my brain seems to have lost its memories and ability to form new ones. I am overweight due to medications for bipolar disorder. I have treatment-resistant depression, or perhaps it is related to autism spectrum disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Story 24. Alcoholism taught me to look at myself and my flaws. Without it, I probably would not be the man I am today. While it is difficult, it is also a blessing. Story 25. Diagnosed with cancer. It has really complicated things. Underwent major surgery to remove the cancer, but they could not remove all of it. Completed chemotherapy and radiotherapy. It has been a year since diagnosis and surgery. Currently looking for a job, but not feeling hopeful at the moment. Story 26. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. My father wasted my mother's savings. I was raised by a single mother. I am black and a minority in a racist and illiterate city. My best friend betrayed me at an early age. I have no friends or anyone with whom I can share my thoughts. I am a 25 to 26-year-old male. Story 27. Abusive parents and health issues are putting me out of work, causing depression. But then I remembered that the only way to be happy is to be grateful for what we have and not complain about the cards we are dealt. I am sure many other people have it worse than me. There comes a point where you either wallow in it or try to improve your situation. Story 28. Undiagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder until I was 39. Primarily inattentive, so I flew under the radar when I was in elementary school. Story 29. A speech impediment, braces, and acne in high school made me a target for bullies. It sounds selfish now, but I was always bullied until I found some friends who used marijuana. I became a marijuana user in my junior year, and we started experimenting with recreational drugs as well. I finally quit marijuana about 3 years ago after a 20-year addiction. The addiction controlled my life after college. I stayed working with my dad doing construction because I could get high all day. I made more money than any of the jobs I was offered since the post-2008 market crash economy was not kind to college graduates who used drugs. I never progressed or had the ambition to take over my dad's business because I was high all the time and just wanted to maintain my lifestyle. I had no motivation to grow, progress, or pursue success. I convinced myself that everyone struggled and no one was successful, so it was normal to be where I was. I was wrong. To sum it up, braces, acne, and a speech impediment in high school made me a target of bullies and constant harassment. I finally found a group of outcasts who accepted me, and we all used marijuana and experimented with drugs. This led to a 20-year marijuana addiction and apathy toward my own life direction and goals. I take full responsibility for my situation, as I never planned for or cared about the future. I am grateful for what I have, not much, and for the people in my life who make the daily grind easier. I feel I had a significant advantage by going to a private high school, and I wasted it. I had difficult social circumstances to overcome in high school, but I did not. Challenges outside my control made my teenage years difficult, but I did not meet the challenge or overcome it. I let it defeat me and found solace in drug abuse. Maybe life did not ruin me, but gave me difficult challenges that I failed. I harmed myself. Story 30. Alcoholic parents with mental health problems. Mental and physical abuse. Moving around a lot as a child. Paralyzed at 15, had to learn to walk again. Depression and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I have had 3 miscarriages. When I was pregnant with my first child, my grandmother died, and when my child was born, my stepmother died, leaving me without the only maternal support I have ever had. My father couldn't care for my little sister because of his alcoholism and mental health problems, so I became her guardian. I joke about how other mothers can get the experience they need before dealing with a teenager, but I have been a mother for 3 years and I already have a 14-year-old. Life is not easy for sure, but I want to leave the world a better place than it was for me. Story 31. My parents caused me trauma and put me on medication throughout my childhood, which most likely led to a brain tumor crushing my pituitary gland and other parts of my brain. This resulted in many years of suicidal depression, confusion, self-doubt, and loneliness while trying to find help, only to be constantly shut down and belittled by them. It is only now, more than 20 years later, that I have started to get the help I need. I discovered the tumor 2 Thursdays ago. Story 32. I have been bullied my whole life for being autistic, which has caused further issues including social anxiety and severe depression. I have experienced a lot of trauma and can hardly remember things. I struggle with thinking and putting sentences together. I do not even know who I am anymore. Story 33. Single mother who worked late. No father figure or male role model. No siblings. This led to poor social skills and relationships. Story 34. Adopted as an infant. My parents divorced when I was 3. I lived with my mother in a house with a mortgage and a car with a loan payment, but she only had a part-time nursing job. Thank you, Dad. Story 35. Finally repaired my credit and saved enough to make a down payment on a house, but then a pandemic tripled housing prices. Story 36. My parents did not allow me any say in anything, and now I struggle with making my own decisions. Story 37. Type 1 diabetes requires managing blood sugar levels manually, and it can be very challenging to maintain proper control. Story 38. 2 girls decide payback means false allegations. 100% ruined my life for the last 15 years and counting. Story 39. Trauma. A father said, "Forget this." When I turned 10 and started using methamphetamine, a mother with a good heart hurt me by not letting me go out as a high schooler, such as parties, going out with friends, or on trips. This really affected my social skills later in life. Story 40. Perfectly good everything, but I have a difficult personality that I happen to like and have had my whole life. If you must know, my comment history is there in my profile. Story 41. Restless leg syndrome. It sounds like something silly and made up, but it can really make your life miserable and sleep next to impossible sometimes. Luckily, mine is fairly sporadic and I have learned to deal with it pretty well. Story 42. I have anxiety and depression. My father was abusive. I have self-harmed. My ex-girlfriend gave me drugs and assaulted me while I was unconscious, despite my refusal beforehand. She threatened me and shared my secrets, even though I begged her not to, and she promised to keep them private. My friend died of cancer. My uncle overdosed. My grandfather died from alcohol-related causes. My mother is rarely home. I am addicted to nicotine and tempted by the idea of using cannabis. My friends are either struggling with substance abuse or are rarely around. My aunt died from injuries sustained in an explosion. I was almost pushed off a building last night. My ex-partners cheated on me or wanted to. Recently, a high school student threatened me with a gun. Every night, I cry myself to sleep. Story 43. Narcolepsy was not diagnosed until I was 25. Throughout middle school, high school, and college, I was equivalent to staying awake for 72 hours and then starting my day. I was exhausted and tired, but then again, everyone is. It affected me since high school, which prepares you for college and beyond. I also have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, but my parents never considered it because no one else in the family had it. In addition to those, I was diagnosed with major depression when I was a senior in high school, although I had symptoms as early as 3rd grade. I remember wanting to end my life without knowing why, thinking it was normal. I definitely made some personal mistakes, which I admit did not help my situation, but I still feel like I never had a chance to succeed or be successful. It is hard to find the will to live most days. I am trying ketamine soon, so maybe that will help, but I remain doubtful. Story 44. Google tuberous sclerosis complex type 2. I have that. Not severely, luckily, but I have had to have surgery because of it. I now have to have yearly magnetic resonance imaging scans and other scans to monitor it, as well as taking medications for my seizures. Additionally, I do not know if I will be able to conceive a child the normal way with a future spouse because this disorder can cause severe autism, potential cancer, and deformities. Story 45. Childhood neglect and abuse. I always knew I was treated differently than my older brother. I thought I must have been adopted because there was a clear difference in how I was treated compared to my brother. I found out from my dad during my parents' divorce that I was an accident and I shouldn't have been born. If I hadn't been born, my parents would not have struggled financially for almost 2 decades, which led to many arguments and eventually an inevitable divorce. I was already depressed and suicidal due to the physical and mental abuse and neglect, but I spiraled deeply after realizing that I shouldn't exist. The fact that my own existence caused suffering completely destroyed me and still continues to haunt me. That fact does not haunt me as much as it used to as a grown man, but if I ever commit suicide, that is a major reason why. I shouldn't exist. Story 46. My family made a decent living. I got laid off during the stock market crash in 2007. After that, I worked in minimum wage jobs with no prospects. I bounced around after being betrayed by our extended family. I have been living near the poverty line ever since. If any of you truly have it as bad as we do, I will pray for you. To the rest, I hope you never have to live like this. I would rather be dead, honest to God. Story 47. After my friend attempted suicide a while back, my life crumbled. I was overwhelmed with anxiety, grief, and sadness. I had to go to school without knowing if my friend was alive or dead. Tore me apart like I was paper. Then my friend group split apart only a few weeks later, so I had to deal with the stress from that, along with realizing my childhood trauma. Those 3 things plunged me into a long and deep depression where I was considering suicide. When life started to feel happier again, I felt strange. Happiness was such an unfamiliar emotion that I felt comfort when feeling sad and miserable. I would never wish any of what happened to me onto anybody. Story 48. Teenage and early 20s trauma. Failed marriage due to infidelity and dishonesty on her part. Retrenched twice, and unfairly dismissed once. I won the unfair dismissal case and have been underpaid for the last 13 years, but there is nowhere I can go because I cannot afford the risk of losing my income. Story 49. It is constantly through no fault of my own. In the last week alone, told we have to move out of our home. With 3 kids at school, it is more than a hassle. My father, who is ill, had 2 strokes. I was banned in a false mass ban wave on Instagram, which banned all Meta accounts, cutting off communication with family. I only found out my father had a stroke on Monday, although it happened on Friday. The usual work difficulties. Every week except one in the last 4 months, I have received bad news or experienced something negative. Story 50. Not realizing until after she was married that my partner and I loved each other. She told me if she had known, she would have called off her engagement. Instead, we were just 2 ships passing in the night. It still bothers me sometimes. Story 51. I was diagnosed with diabetes at age 4. I am now beginning to experience complications. However, we are only 5 years away from a cure. Story 52. Took my soulmate away before we could even get married. She was completely healthy one day, then gone the next. Story 53. I was born with my intestines outside of my body. A nurse accidentally sliced my cheek within an hour of being born, leaving me with a scar. During the surgery to fix my intestinal issues, I developed a blood infection because they used an old tube. My parents did not know that suing was an option, so we did not receive any compensation from that. Story 54. Born into capitalism, too soon or too late to explore the stars. It ruins your entire life. Every instance must monetize someone, something, somehow. Eat the rich. Story 55. Man boobs, regardless of my weight or age. Severe acne as a teenager. Too trusting and willing to endure difficulties in an effort to save my marriage. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.